Welcome to the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast, where all things football are injected right to your veins, with your hosts, Matt Donnelly, Calvin Shoemake, and Jeff Mueller.
What is up? Welcome to the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast. This is the team spotlight series. We are going through all 32 teams, talking about what we can expect for this offseason, and we are so close to free agency opening. We've got a lot of movement already. One of those teams that's already made a couple of big moves is the team we're here to talk about today, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles. Lots of big things, and even like a special Jalen Hurts day around Twitter today, and I'm excited to talk about that. To do that, we've got a great panel of guests. I like to explain every show that one of the reasons why we like to do this is because when we think about Dynasty, we get to February and all anyone wants to talk about is rookies. And that's good. We need to understand the rookies. We definitely need to understand that. But it's important that we also understand these teams that everybody is going to go excited about once they draft those rookies. So let's think about the offensive systems. Let's talk about what kind of role they could find themselves in if they do get drafted, and what some of the smart football people around think that their team might do even in free agency. And to do that, we've got smart people who happen to also be fans of your Philadelphia Eagles. I'll let them introduce themselves here one by one, and I'll start to my left with Eagle Dan. We've actually been on a show already discussing the Carson Wentz trade a few weeks ago. But go ahead, introduce yourself, tell everybody where they can find you and what you're doing over the offseason.
All right, thanks for having me on. You can find me at EagleDanFF on Twitter. I'm currently the Dynasty lead writer at Going for Two, where I co-host a podcast with G-Man J, Podcast with Upside. I'm also a contributing writer at 14 Personnel and a Dynasty ranker at Fantasy Pros.
Very cool. Very happy to have you on the show. Glad for you to be back. And we've got Mr. Cut Nate Jerry, I guess, down there. Mike, welcome to the show, man. Glad to have you on. Where can we find you, and what are you working on?
How am I supposed to follow Eagle Dan after that? I mean, he does all that. I just hosted Dynasty Rewind. That's pretty much it. But looking forward to this show. And yes, please cut Nate Gary. He's terrible. We'll talk about him then.
Very cool. And then, of course, the trade addict himself down there below me, Mr. Rocky. How are you today? And where can we find you? What you've been working on these days?
Hey, thanks for having me on. Looking forward to this. You can find me at the Trade Addicts podcast with my co-host, Dynasty Outhouse, Rush Fisher. And also on the Dynasty Junkies podcast, which I recently revived. It's what I was doing before Russ pulled me over to Trade Addicts. So bringing that back, and it doesn't quite have the listenership, but everybody should go check it out. There's a great episode this past week with Zach Reed and Garrett Price. So doing some good stuff over there.
Well, very cool. Very excited to have all you guys on the show. And honestly, I think if you were to ask everybody who the most interesting fan base on the planet would be, you might have this team here. You've got Nate's team and the Dallas Cowboys, or how about their rivals, the Philadelphia Eagles? A lot of famous things going on with your team and your fandom, so let's talk about it. And Mike, I want to start with you. Just what was it like being an Eagles fan? I assume you've been an Eagles fan your whole life, being right there from the area. So what's it like growing up as an Eagles fan?
Yeah, so I've been an Eagles fan for over 30 years, which is a long time, a lot of misery. These guys can all attest to that. Basically, for me, being an Eagles fan, it was really the only thing that my dad and I did when I was younger. He had one day off a week. That was his day, but he let me be part of his day during football season. So that was something just carried over with me. And now I got a little girl. She watches the game with me, and it's great. And every bad thing that Cowboys fans have had happen to them or whatever have happened at the stadium, you all deserved it in some capacity, be it batteries at Jimmy Johnson, snowballs at Santa. I know that was someone else. Stay out of our stadium. You won't get hurt. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Very cool. How about you, Dan? What was it like growing up as an Eagle fan?
It was pretty rough because in the part of Jersey where I grew up in, it was mostly all Giants fans. My best friend is actually a Giants fan, and I'm actually marrying one, so they're everywhere. But growing up, my dad would we go over to my uncle's house in Philly, and we watch the games together pretty much every Sunday. It was a lot of fun. I think the first game I ever remember watching, which I found out later, was the body bag game versus the Washington team. So it's been a long time. But it's definitely been some ups and downs, getting close with Andy Reid, but then finally, winning in 2017 was awesome.
Rocky, how about you? What's your experience like as an Eagle fan?
Yeah, and I definitely have the experience these two guys have with my dad. And it's funny Mike mentions the kids too, because I have 4 kids. First 3, nothing to do with sports, period. But I finally got that the 10-year-old is right there with me every Sunday now watching Eagles games. So I finally got it right on the last one, I guess. But yeah, I agree with them. Definitely a lot of ups and downs. I actually was kind of thinking of it until 2017. It was sort of like Lucy and the Charlie Brown and the football, because they be hanging around for most. I've been a fan longer, I think, probably even than Mike has, back to the 80s. I'm 43, so and for most of these last 30 years, they actually have been hanging around most of the time. They're just never good enough to win the damn thing, and then finally they did 3 years ago. But now we're back to not so good, and we need to get rid of Howie Roseman, I think.
Yes, 1,000 times yes.
Agreed.
Interesting. Okay, so Mike, I know you got some thoughts on Roseman. I know all you guys do. I don't mind certainly getting into that right here, and maybe just in talking about 2020 and what you guys saw, and maybe what kind of sparked some of that. Mike, where does the Howie Roseman hate come from?
Yeah, I mean, well, you extend a quarterback, and then you draft one in the second round. And I know on your sheet, it was what was one of the most memorable moments of 2020. And for me, that was it, because that's your chance to start off the offseason and make that memorable impression. That really is the big swing right there. And it just fell flat on the face. Then the entire season starts off on the wrong foot. You don't give him much. Jalen Reagor, jury's still out. I still think he's going to be better for NFL than fantasy. But your other wide receivers that you draft are Quez Watkins and John Hightower Jr. Come on, dude. Come on. Tyler Johnson was sitting there in the 6th round. Tyler Johnson's he has a potential better than Quez Watkins. And now basically Howie Roseman is drafting this year to save his job and to appease the fan base. I don't think they make a pick at 6. I think they draft back. But if you look at what they've done in free agency otherwise and some of these bad contracts, he just has to go. Unfortunately, he's Lurie's lap boy, so he's not going anywhere until Lurie wakes up and realizes he's not cutting it. So he's got to go. The drafting's been bad. The free agency's been worse.
Yeah, the drafting's been bad for years, and not just those bad late round receivers that Mike was talking about. Just in the last couple of years, he's bypassed Justin Jefferson and DK Metcalf so that he could draft JJ Arcega-Whiteside and Jalen Reagor. So that should be enough right there. But really, especially since the Super Bowl year, the drafting just as a whole has been horrendous. There's been very few solid picks out of there. Maybe Miles Sanders, 1 or 2 other guys, not much else.
Do you think his ego got the best of him? Because they won the Super Bowl, like, I could do no wrong. Whatever I do is going to be fine.
I kind of do, because you heard stories before Chip Kelly, put him in the closet or whatever, that was an issue. He had issues with relating to people, issues with taking control too much and all that stuff. And I think he was a changed Howie after Chip, Lurie actually demoted him during the Chip era, and then they brought him back, and I think he was revived, and then he got high on his success, and he became the old Howie again.
Noted Giants fan, G-Man J, and I guess co-host with Dan says Dan loves J-Jaw. Is that true?
I was a huge J-Jaw fan up until I had to face the truth. He just wasn't good enough. But I agree with you guys with the whole draft thing. I mean, just you can just go over the drafts last couple of years. I think we have like maybe 1 or 2 players that are even left, not even just contributing, like even left from the past couple of drafts. Yeah. I mean, when your best draft pick in the last 4 years is probably Derek Barnett or Dallas Goedert, I mean, it's a big problem.
Yeah, and it's interesting you guys mentioned the draft stuff there, and that's obviously really big draft pick. That was one of the more controversial picks last year, was taking Jalen Hurts, and then as you mentioned, Mike, trade away Carson Wentz, and Carson Wentz had I guess you could say it was kind of a rocky, not to give you a pun there, Rocky to set you up, but yeah, kind of a rocky history there with the team, because he was obviously had high highs. I mean, consideration for the MVP the year he won the Super Bowl, but then wasn't the guy that brought you to the Super Bowl to ultimately, hold the trophy up at the end. So Rocky, like, what was, when you saw the news of Carson Wentz traded? I mean, I think everybody saw it coming, but was there kind of mixed emotions there?
Not really. You knew it was over. It's like Mike said, with the drafting of Hurts, I think a lot of the consensus around here is that sort of mentally broke Carson Wentz, especially after the whole Nick Foles saga. What you're referring to, that he didn't win the Super Bowl. I think that weighed on him. I think a lot of this year was mental. I actually don't hate Wentz's chances to rebound some going forward, But yeah, once he got benched, I kind of thought the writing was on the wall right there. Once he got benched, I think it was in the Packers game, I pretty much thought he was not coming back. And then everything you heard off this offseason wasn't just that they wanted to get rid of him, but he wanted out. When Peterson got fired, I thought maybe that was a sign that they were trying to stick by Wentz, but it looks like he wanted out no matter what.
Dan, talk a little bit about the Wentz trade. I know we talked about it, but just has your feelings changed on Hurts, I guess, any since then? Are you still kind of feel the same way?
I still kind of feel the same way. I think that he deserves this year coming up to see what he can do. And we did spend a second round pick on him. So I think any quarterback that you pick at number 6 isn't going to be demonstrably better than what Hurts can probably give you this year. So why would you, if you take a quarterback at 6, you're basically burning that second round pick that you picked last year. And that's just a complete waste of resources when Hurts wasn't that bad going into last year. But I think that with Wentz gone and with him and ownership basically saying that they should build around him, I think that gives him the green light to be the guy for at least this year, and we'll see what we can do with him.
And I think if Hurts isn't the real deal anyway, they'll probably be picking in this area next year anyway, so they can just draft one next year.
Yeah, fair enough. Michael, how about you?
Yeah, I hated the Wentz trade just because I've been a Wentz fan forever. I was a Wentz truther. I still am. I think he's going to be fine for fantasy this year. Could, be at the back end of a quarterback one, potentially. So it kind of sucked. And I think at the end of the day, what we as Eagles fans want, we don't want the drama. This quarterback drama goes back to the McNabb era. We always wanted to back up. Then it was Cobb and Vic and blah, 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 blah.
Jeff Garcia.
Jeff Garcia.
Yeah.
We want to know who the guy is. That's it. If it's Hurts, if it's Fields, if it's whoever, whatever.
That's a great point, because we thought we had the guy too. That's what makes it hurt. Yeah.
And you know what? When people say things like, well, he's not mentally tough enough for this city. Have you ever been replaced? Have you ever had, hey, this guy is going to he's going to take your job, but you just got to work with him for a while and everything's going to be cool. Like, do you really want to go to a work environment like that? I don't think you do. And it's just one of those things where it's like, oh, well, he makes millions of dollars a year. He should just suck it up. Well, the emotions do play into it. So there were a lot of times last year when I thought he was the only guy on the field giving any effort whatsoever. Alshon Jeffrey did not look interested catching the ball from Carson Wentz at all. At all. So we could say what we want. He tried his best. He didn't do his best, but the guy tried. That's all I can really give him credit for.
I love your point there about, like, human beings just don't work that way. That's just not the way we're wired. Yeah. And another thing that I think happened that was kind of famous there is Sirianni's speech when he kind of came across as he was nervous maybe or whatever it is. And a lot of people gave him a hard time for that. And I remember defending him like, no, guys, that's hard. Like, he's getting the job of his life. He's in front of people he doesn't really know. And he's I'm sure it went better in his mind than it actually worked out. But that was his introduction to Philadelphia. Now he's got some roots that trace back there. Frank Reich, having studied under him, and Frank Reich being there in Philadelphia. So I think there's at least a little bit of roots there that Philly fans can maybe latch on to. But Dan, what about the hiring of Sirianni? Is that who you were hoping for when this process started, or is that kind of just? How do you feel about the move now?
To be honest, I didn't even expect him to, like, he wasn't even on my radar when the coaching search first started. But once we hired him and looking to see like his credentials and stuff, I think he's a solid hire. I mean, he's not like the big name like Urban Meyer or something that Jacksonville had, but I think that with the system that he could bring, if it's anything like what Frank Reich had, and with his staff, I think that he could do a solid job. They just got to give him a chance. And with the press conference thing, like I personally am a terrible public speaker. Like I'm horrible. Even sometimes when I do podcasts, like I get nervous and like I fumble words and stuff. So I think that the whole like him doing bad at the press conference was completely overblown. It shouldn't, just because you have a bad press conference doesn't mean you don't know football. So I think how judging based on how he does on the field and not how he talks to the media.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Mike, what do you think about, just between whether it's a press conference or whatever, but just the introduction of Sirianni to Eagles fans? Like, are you on board with everything that he's bringing to the table?
I think the problem is after Dan Campbell's press conference, everybody was kind of expecting a little bit of that. Dude was nervous, like you said.
Yeah.
First time, I don't think Frank Reich allowed his coaching staff to do press conferences. Do you guys know? I had heard something about that. So, that could be one of those things that factors in too. If you've never done it before, the first time you do it, you're not going to be good at it. I'm an auto mechanic, and I've been an auto mechanic for 17 years this month. The first time I did everything, I wasn't great at it either. So again, just the human condition factors into it. I thought the hire, that means Wentz was staying. That's what I thought the first thing, when they hired him, but wrong again. Interested to see how he takes a quarterback like Jalen Hurts and adapts his system to that, because he did say he's going to do what's best for his players and not try to work his players into the system. So I want to see his adaptability, and we'll go from there. But I thought I liked the hire overall, to be honest with you.
Right, and I'm with these two. I mean, I'm not doing backflips over it or anything, but I'm definitely willing to give him a chance. Nobody liked Doug Peterson when we hired him in 2016 or whatever it was, and he also did not have a great first press conference himself. No. And he went on to win a Super Bowl. So they don't pay him to win press conferences; they pay him to win football games. So I'm fine with Sirianni. I wouldn't have minded some of the other names out there. I know they didn't. I forget if they even interviewed Bieniemy. I think they did, but didn't want to, I guess, wait for Kansas City, or they didn't like him or whatever. He was a guy I wouldn't have minded seeing coming here. But after seeing what happened with Peterson, I'm going to give anybody in there a chance. I'm a little skeptical just because he's so young and he doesn't have a huge track record, but I'm willing to give him a chance.
Interesting comment here from M99. It'll be a carbon copy of the OU system, RPOs, screens, deep shots, and running the football. I mean, if so, you probably have the pieces for that, right? I mean, you got Rager, you got Sanders. I mean, there's definitely the right pieces for that, and Jalen Hurts leading the ship there. So let's talk about who could be a part of that, because the first thing you look at, they're $25 million over the cap. Now, there's some things that maybe they can do to kind of push some things to the back and move some money around, things like that. But they got some unrestricted free agents. I mean, I don't know if you want to bring back Deshaun Jackson, but Jason Peters, Jalen Mills, Nickel Roby-Coleman. Coleman. I mean, there's some guys that you may want to bring back. But what do you think with the cap situation and the guys in house? Like, what do you think they do just in terms of their own guys, Dan?
Well, I know for the cap, we're going to have to, restructure a couple more guys. I know Ertz is probably heading out of town, and there were some rumors today about maybe trading Brandon Brooks. As for our own free agents, just taking like a quick peek over them, I wouldn't honestly bring back anybody. There's no one on that list that is like a game breaker. Maybe some solid depth, maybe like a Hassan Ridgeway or like a Vinny Curry cheap. But I mean, this team has to get younger. Like, it's been too old for too long. We've been hanging out these multi-year deals, see these guys that aren't performing anymore. So, in all honesty, I wouldn't re-sign any of them. I do the draft, do some undrafted free agents, and see where we go from there.
Kind of give him a chance to bring in his own guys. Mike, does that sound like a rebuild to you?
I think it's going to be like a partial / competitive rebuild as best as they can. The only guy I would be interested in keeping is Jalen Mills, just because of his versatility. He could play safety and cornerback. But then again, new defensive coordinator maybe doesn't want him back. And if he's not back, that's fine too, to be completely honest with you. But these guys, they're going to have to shed a lot of dead weight and a lot of aging guys. And it wouldn't surprise me if you see guys like Lane Johnson and Fletcher Cox not in an Eagles uniform. If they're already shopping Brandon Brooks, one of the best guards in the NFL, why stop there, right? Like, if you're going to do a rebuild, you got to do it right. And all of us here should not expect really good results for a year or two, to be honest with you. So
I'm right there with Mike. Yeah, I'm not expecting anything out of 2021. Nope. And I agree. Mills is the only guy that and it's only if you can get him cheap. It would be the only guy I'd be interested in keeping. I wouldn't like to see them keep the offensive line intact. I know he mentioned possibly, the guy mentioned Brooks and Lane possibly moving on. Mainly just even some of the older guys. I don't want Jason Peters back. That I don't want. No. But just to give Hurts the best chance he can have, I think you need to keep the line intact, keep him upright. They gave up ridiculous. I think it was 65 sacks or something like that last year total. So and getting Brooks back, having Kelsey there, Lane there for the whole year, he missed a lot of time. So I think you keep the line intact. You try and build up around the offense around Hurts, possibly through the draft, and then you see what you got in him, so that we can make a correct evaluation on him going into 2022.
May I just ask a quick question here? Who do you guys think starts at left tackle, Dillard or Mailata?
I think it will be Mailata. I think they'll want it to be Dillard, but it will be Mailata.
And I think if Brooks goes, Dillard's a guard, possibly.
Yeah, Mailata should start at the left tackle spot.
Yeah, he held his own.
I want Mailata too. The guy was a steal. He was undrafted, or he was a seventh round.
Seventh round pick.
Yeah.
Who came from rugby or Australian rules football or something. Yeah.
Love it. I love guys like that.
So that's exactly where I was going. I appreciate you jumping on that, Mike, because that's the offensive line. Yeah, if you do trade Brooks, I mean, ultimately, what does that look like? And I think that's you guys seem to form a pretty quick consensus on that, so that's good. The line wasn't one that people talked about as being very good last year. I mean, Carson Wentz did, struggle with that a little bit. Now you're turning it over to 22-year-old Jalen Hurts. Dan, let's just talk a little bit about what's the ceiling look like for a Jalen Hurts when you have Rager, you got Sanders, you got Goddard, probably trading Hurts or releasing him at some point, getting rid of Jeffrey. Is this a team that can afford to take that number 6 pick and add to his receiving core?
Yeah, I would absolutely. That's what I would do personally. I would take the number 6 and go get a receiver, Jamar Chase. But I think that with the rookie contract he's on, Hurts after this year, Wentz's dead cap is off the cap sheet. Hurts is cheap. Build around him. If you can get that offense, up into the top 10, top half of the league with that cheap contract of his, then you have a much better chance of going places.
Rocky, what do you think about that? Just in general, with the line that you've got there with Jalen Hurts, is he going to be able to do anything with that, or is adding a guy like Jamar Chase, is that kind of what you're thinking? Or I've also seen a lot of people speculating that they could be looking at a pretty high end tight end right there, number 6 as well.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of going. I mean, Pitts is amazing, but when you already have Goddard and you have so many other needs, I don't see the need to go for Pitts there at 6. But in reference to the O-line, I don't. If they don't trade Brooks, which I don't think they should, I think this from center to the whole right side of the line is fine. And then Mailata, we just mentioned, held his own, and then he just left guard. So they do need to get younger there, and I would like to see them definitely go after that spot in the draft, but not with the number 6 pick. I'm totally on board with Dan. I'm looking for a receiver. I would definitely prefer it be Jamar Chase, so I hope he does not go in the top 5. I feel like he's like the one guy that the Eagles somehow could not screw up like they did with Rager and Jay Jaw. So even Devontae Smith, I'd be a little worried just because I could see the potential for him going bad. And if it's the Eagles, he will go bad. So with what they do with receivers. But I think Chase will be good no matter what. So that's the guy I'm hoping for as well.
Dan, do they have something against SEC receivers? You mentioned they passed up on Metcalf, passed up on Justin Jefferson. Like, are you sure they're going to try for Jamar Chase?
Am I sure? No. Should they? Yes. I don't want another Pac-12 or any kind of guy there. No, I want an SEC guy that has played against elite competition and knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I'm fine with Jamar Chase. And if you double up on receiver, for me, if you went Jamar Chase and Tylan Wallace in the second round, I would be completely fine with that. Another big body guy that could do everything really, really well. They need to go for the gusto. And actually, to be honest with you, I think this could be a time where we see whether or not J-Jaw can be a serviceable wide receiver in the NFL. New coaching staff comes in, clean slate, maybe something happens. As far as, the question that you brought up before, can Hurts, what's the limit for him? Is it sky's the limit? The problem with a quarterback like Jalen Hurts is he masks all the deficiencies that an offense has: bad offensive line and bad wide receiving core. His mobility allows the line to set up extra blocks or he gets away from pressure. His mobility allows for bad receivers to get open because the defensive back can only cover a wide receiver for so long. So everybody that asked me, well, it's the same cast of characters, why is Hurts so much better? Well, it's not that he's better. He's just different than what Carson Wentz is. So the problem with, to me, a guy like Jalen Hurts is I feel like they might not draft around him so much as they say that they're going to, if that makes sense to you. And really, a guy like that's still going to need big splash players. Like, look at the wide receiving core in Baltimore. Do you think if they had a really bona fide stud, that team wouldn't be better? I know Lamar Jackson's not the best passer, but I think you see where I'm going with that. So Jamar Chase is my guy at 6, as everybody else here. Consensus there. Tylan Wallace in the second round, if they even have a second round pick. I haven't looked in a while.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
they do great. So, and then they really need to get some good offensive line depth. I would be happy too if they traded back and they didn't take Jamar Chase and they got like a Micah Parsons in the middle of the first round. I'd be fine with, because they need a thumper on defense too. Defense is pathetic. That line should be feasting, and it's not at all.
So I was going to ask you about that, just to flip over real quick, and we'll get right back to the offensive side. But I was going to ask you about the defensive side, and I'll just toss this out. I guess Rocky, you can start, but anybody who wants to talk about the defense. I mean, that wasn't a great side of the ball this year, and I feel like the Eagles have pretty consistently liked to have pretty good defenses, and that just wasn't really the case there with Jim Schwartz. And they got a new guy now, and what are you seeing, or what do you think about that defense and trying to build from there?
Yeah, it wasn't great, but it wasn't awful last year either. But they also, the strength is definitely the line. Brandon Graham is pretty good. Fletcher Cox is still pretty good, but old. Josh Sweat is a young guy who's made some plays. So I'm not too worried about. We definitely need depth there. Always good to get a guy on the lines in any draft. But if they're going to do anything, I think it's going to be a corner. They never like to draft linebackers. They don't prioritize linebacker. If they don't go with Chase, I could see them going with one of those top corners, Surtain, or I forget the other guy's name right now. But I could see that, and I don't hate the idea of trading back like Bauer referred to. But yeah, I think if they're going to do anything there, they're going to upgrade at corner with a high pick, and I think the line's fine. And they just, like I said, they don't care. Ever since Howie's been there, ever since ever, really, they don't care. I don't think they've drafted a linebacker in the first round since like the 70s or something.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It's it's something like that. It's ridiculous. It might be the 80s, but it's been like 30, 40 years since they drafted a linebacker in the first round.
Yeah.
Not since I've been alive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to believe.
They'll do like second round linebackers that never pan out. Like, I think the best.
They're the king of that.
Trotter panned out. You know what I mean? But that was how long ago? That was like the late 90s. So yeah. I mean, our linebacking core is sad. We have TJ Edwards, who's fine, but then you have Nate Gary, who's terrible. Just look at my little hashtag here. He's just so bad. And somebody said to me, "Oh, he was playing through an Achilles injury. Do you feel bad now?" No, I don't. If you're a professional athlete and you're hurt, get off the field. You should know better. And Alex Singleton is okay. I don't know, like when they know that he's the guy that they have to scheme for, like, is he going to be able to step up and do it? I don't know. It's just, it's sad.
I think to your point, Mike, we think Singleton is okay just because we've had to deal with Nate Gary the entire time. I think in the context of the NFL, he's not. But I think with the new defensive coordinator with Gannon there, I think that we'll see what he has to deal with. I think not having our corners play 15 yards off the ball every down is going to help because we won't get destroyed by slant plays, and then maybe a linebacker that can actually breathe and tackle when he's supposed to will also help. So if we get a decent like the cover 2 system like he's supposed to be bringing over, I would feel better about that and putting people in the right place and not having Avonte Maddox as an outside corner.
And no more wide 9. Get rid of that garbage. I can't stand it. The defensive ends are all the way out there. It's like, it's so frustrating.
It's terrible.
It's bad.
You don't have the linebackers for that. Can't do it.
Exactly.
So a lot of times a bad defense can be really good for fantasy. So I just want to one more quick thing about the quarterback. I'm going to jump back in on that. There's a lot of reports that the Eagles have had some interest in trading for Marcus Mariota. Would you be for that? Or is that kind of, no, we don't need to bring anybody in who Eagles fans, like you said, Mike, could they start clamoring for that next guy if it's not going well with Jalen Hurts for a week or two?
Yeah, I don't want that. I don't want a backup that could potentially be the starter. I would rather. I heard on an Eagles podcast. I forget which one it was. I listened to a couple of Eagles podcasts with beat writers and such, but they mentioned whoever the backup should be awful because if Jalen Hurts goes down, we don't want this team to win anyway. So it should be somebody who's not very good.
Yeah,
yeah, there you go. But yeah, I don't want any contract. I don't want Jalen Hurts to have to look over his shoulder like I'm sure Carson Wentz was. I'm not sure who the guy would be other than Nate Sudfeld. But somebody who could come in, maybe a Chase Daniel, who I saw was in the news today about something. Somebody who's not going to threaten his job. I think Chase Daniel was actually here before too. I don't want a Mariota. I don't want anybody like that. I don't want a Ryan Fitzpatrick. I don't want anybody where he's going to have to think this guy might come in and start if I have a couple bad games.
I wonder about Jacoby Brissett, just because Sirianni did have him in there, in Indy last year, and that might fit the bill for what he would want. Somebody that can help him with the system, things like that.
Whatever.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate that.
I wouldn't mind Brissett. Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
So, moving on then from the quarterback, and let's talk about that star running back and that position, because Miles Sanders has been just the Dynasty Twitter's guy as like, hey, here's a top 5 running back. It hasn't worked out that way, partially I think because of Doug Peterson. Rocky, talk about that. Like, what are the expectations of Miles Sanders going forward, and do you blame Peterson for why he hasn't really been the top 5 guy we've wanted him to be?
I think the hype was way too high on Miles Sanders going into last year, but now I do think it may have swung a little too far the other way. I think I saw he's like RB 16 or 17 in ADP, something like that. I still think he can finish as a high-end RB2, low-end 1 with his pass catching ability. I do worry a little. Sirianni's coming from the Frank Reich, Doug Peterson coaching tree and the rotation thing. They definitely did that in Indianapolis to our dismay with Taylor and Hines and even Wilkins for a little too long. But I think that he'll still be the guy. And last year he was more the guy than people think. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know his snap percentage was a lot high. It was in like the 75-80% range when he was healthy. It wasn't as much of a rotation last year, which is in part probably because they didn't have anybody. It was Boston Scott and Corey Clement and Jordan Howard for part of the season. So, but I'm not sure they're going to sign anyone significant this year either. They don't have a lot of cap space. I don't see them drafting one early. So I think he finishes higher than he did last year. I think if the line holds up too, that the offense could be a little better than people think. It's not going to be a top offense. But if Hurts is even competent, the offense will be an upgrade over last year because Wentz was basically the worst quarterback in the league. So I think there's a lot of stuff going in his favor. I mean, the biggest thing is just that they are not projected to be very good, so that could be an issue with not scoring a lot of touchdowns. But as long as he gets involved in the passing game, I think we're going to see better than last year. But I'm not projecting him top 5 or anything. Like I said, in that RB 10 to 15 range.
Mike, quick question for you. Number one, have you considered renaming your show Bauer Hour? Just throwing it out there. And
no.
Two. The running back situation is really interesting because this is a crazy stat that I pulled up. 23rd in rushing attempts last year, but 9th in rushing yards. Actually, very efficient in what they were doing. Better at running the ball than I think people give them credit for, and in a tough division against the run. Do you think Miles Sanders, this could be the year for him?
Absolutely. When it's amazing how efficient he was with his 10 carries a game that he got last year. But let's not forget. Now, I'm pretty sure that Deuce Staley was the guy in charge of the running back rotation. So everyone said Peterson. Staley had a lot to do with it. So all you Swift truthers, just beware. He is in Detroit now. Also, no, I'm not renaming the show Bauer Hour because the show's about more than just me. I'm just the host of it, but that is clever. Thank you. Yeah. I'm excited, and I think this year our offense is going to be a lot like Jacksonville was last year. A lot of points, good for fantasy, not very good in the win-loss column. That's what I see happening. And Hurts is going to help Miles Sanders in the rushing category too, because you have to compensate, just like how Lamar Jackson is good for J.K. Dobbins, who I think is going to smash this year. Mark Ingram previously, where it's like, that's my quarterback. That's great. Thanks, Pork. Yeah, Mark Ingram was good last season. Well, I'm sorry, not last season, but the season before. So that rushing upside from Jalen Hurts is going to help Miles Sanders a lot, I believe.
Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree with what Mike said, all of Mike's points. Also, I have to point out, it might do his receiving numbers better if the quarterback that's throwing him the ball can hit him on a wide open wheel route every once in a while. Something Carson Wentz was incapable of doing at all.
I never understood that either. Didn't understand it. Like, come on, dude.
So I think his receiving numbers are going to be much better going with Hurts.
What do you think the rushing attempts will look like? I mean, you referenced the Mark Ingram, the Baltimore offense. They're 32nd. I mean, they're 32nd in pass attempts. They're always they run the ball more than anybody. Right. Do you think that's the kind of offense you're going to see here?
No, I feel like it's going to be more passing than that. I would say that, if we're talking about bottom tier, it's going to be, I actually looked this up recently, and it was Baltimore was bottom. Then I think Tennessee was close. I can't remember the third team. They're going to be probably like 19-20-ish, I would imagine. They're going to probably go run heavy because I think Sirianni's going to know, like, the season might be a lost cause. Let's run the ball, control the clock. If we can pull out a win, great. If not, let's not try to get hurt. That's what I think. Plus, who we throwing the ball to? What if we don't get Jamar Chase? What happens then, right?
Greg Ward, Travis Fulgham.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I love Greg Ward. I'm going to say that right now.
Rocky, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I just think they're going to be kind of middle of the pack, and the defense probably will have some issues, as we alluded to earlier. So that could hinder the running game just because they'll be playing catch up sometimes. But like I said, it could help with the passing game for Sanders. If they're trailing, he's probably going to be on the field just as much, if not more, than Boston Scott in those situations. So, I think that it will be a fairly balanced offense, maybe lean a little more towards the run. I certainly think we'll see some designed runs for Jalen because he does that really well. So I don't think the attempts will be super high, but I think that Sanders is still going to get the majority of them, regardless of who they bring in that like 70% range.
Dan, if they do pass the ball, more than people might think, who's going to outscore each other here, Rager or J-Jaw?
Such exciting options.
I think Rager will take that one.
Oh, you're the J-Jaw guy. Come on.
I am, but I gotta be realistic too. I think Rager will win that just by a slight bit.
I actually do like Rager a lot. I mean, I know that nobody likes him at all right now. But like you guys talked about it, like Wentz was just bad. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. Like there was a time, like I said, he was an MVP candidate at one point. He was just bad last year. You know, there's a lot of things you can say. Rager was hurt. You know, there's a lot of things working against him. I almost feel like it's just too early for people to be giving up on Rager the way they have.
And I think if they do get Chase, like we're all hoping, I think that could help them. That Chase can be like a prototypical X receiver for them, and Rager can do his thing with his speed. And I think that actually would help him more than hurt him, getting another quality receiver on the other side to take some of the pressure off him, and he doesn't have to worry about that as much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder who else is going to be a part of that receiving core, because you know there are some options, you know, potentially in the draft. I mean, I like Mike's idea of kind of going back to back, just build that up and let's just see what Hurts can do. But there could be some options in free agency too. I mean, are there any of those potential like pretty good name wide receivers in free agency, assuming you can get the cap room for it? What is like, are there certain guys you have picked out that you would like, Mike?
I mean, have you looked at the 2021 free agency, wide receiver free agency list? Aside from a couple big names, it is absolute trash. I mean, I would love Chris Godwin. And, you know, maybe that's one of those things where he just won a Super Bowl, so he's not really going for that. He might just go for the payday, but I don't know if he's going to get the payday here. And you know what, Porkman? No, I'm going to disagree with you. I don't think Rager is going to be a good fantasy productive wide receiver. He's a better for NFL guy. Sorry. So I don't know. I really don't think that they're going to have to wait and see who gets cut. You know, and if they can, and yeah, I'll take Josh Reynolds. Why not? They're going to see who gets cut and kind of go from there. So this is going to be one of those off seasons where other teams are going to have to dictate what we do because we're so strapped, unfortunately.
Dan? I was just gonna say I just don't see them get. Like, I know you listed a bunch of them on the sheet. I don't see them getting any of those guys because of the cap situation. They'll get under the cap, but they're not going to get significantly under the cap. And all those guys, a lot of these guys might get tagged. Galladay might get tagged. Godwin might get tagged. I wouldn't mind Juju here, but again, he's going to make a ton of money. So I don't think they're going to be able to afford any of those guys. And if that's the case, if you're not getting somebody already young and established, I mean, Corey Davis doesn't do much for me. I like Corey Davis in fantasy, but I don't care about him coming to the Eagles. So, I don't think they're going to get anybody of significance. I just don't think they have the money. I think they're just going to try and go with these young guys. Like I said, I think we all expect them, even if it's not Chase, to get an early receiving weapon. And just go with Goddard, these other young receivers, and see what happens. And I don't see a major, like I said, addition to the running back spot either. You listed some there. I mean, Philip Lindsay is maybe the most high-profile name. I could see them. Some guy like that doesn't get a great offer somewhere else, and they figured they can put him in case Sanders gets hurt or spell Sanders here and there. Yeah, but maybe James Conner doesn't go back to Pittsburgh and nobody else wants him. I could see something like that. Just somebody they could sign for 1 year and then be like, see ya.
Dan, what do you think? And obviously, you kind of can't talk about this team without talking about the tight end position, so we can, add them in there too. But when does their Ertz get cut because they can't trade him? I think they are going to trade him. I think they're going to get like a 4th or 5th round pick for him. What do you think, Dan? What do you think about the free agency and potentially adding to the weapons that Hurts has?
Yeah, I think that Ertz eventually gets traded. Maybe not for as much as we want him to get traded for, but I think that we can get a pick from somewhere out of him. As for free agency, I agree with Rocky there. We just don't have like the money for like a big name guy, but maybe like the mid lower tier guys that maybe like a Tim Patrick, John Ross. One of those, a name guy, I guess that could go for 1 year. Maybe AJ Green. Maybe that
be okay with that. Maybe
cheap. like a bigger possession receiver that we don't really have in the offense right now because J-Jaw isn't doing anything. So if you're looking for like a name guy, I would look maybe to like a cheaper 1 year deal for him. See if he has anything left in the tank.
Yeah, I don't hate that when they could kind of guide the young receivers and teach them how to play the position. Yeah.
Well, do you really need anything if you've got John Hightower? I mean, that it really kind of You can kind of do whatever you want when you've got him in there. I love that this Joe is turning into the co-host of you guys, like calling you out for your bad Eagles takes.
To be honest, Hightower could get open. He just couldn't catch.
That is true. Hey, if he would have caught that pass in the Ravens game, they would have won that game.
Yep.
Yeah. So
that's right. Quez Watkins he had that good touchdown that one game where he just that spin move and outspit everyone else. So Watkins, I mean, if you can give him some time, maybe he can turn into something.
And the problem with the wide receiving core is too, we have guys that are hot for a spell for a little bit, and they're like, all right, we're smarter than the next coach, so we're just not going to use you anymore. Like when Fulgham was a hot commodity, and then they're like, Alshon Jeffrey should get thrown the ball right now. Come on.
I know we haven't even talked about Travis Fulgham this whole episode, and he was for a month. He was the hottest thing going.
He was the best receiver in the league. Much less the team.
Was. And I think he has the skill, and I believe he might still be under contract. I'd have to check that, but give the guy a shot. If you can't sign anybody and he's already there, just let him line up on the outside.
I think he is. I think it was a 2-year deal, so I think he is there for this year.
I couldn't remember if it was a 1 or 2 because I believe they signed him off of it was either Green Bay or Detroit's practice squad, so I wasn't sure how that whole contract
I believe it was
played.
2.
Okay, yeah, I hope Dan's right. I think it is 2.
I want him to be around. I like Fulgham a lot. He's big. He's got talent. Yeah, we don't need every wide receiver to be a complete stud. Sometimes what you need is that Jordan Matthews. He caught the ball. He got a first down. Sorry, Jake is distracting me here. Make Rocky and Mike quit with sticks. What do you do that for?
We're having Jake on Trade Addicts later tonight too. So.
Oh, that's good. Jake's a fantastic guest. Sometimes you just need that guy who's not going to do anything flashy, but he's just solid. Catches the ball, first down, chains move.
Receivers that can do their job is key for what the Eagles need. Just do your job.
Just anything.
If you can catch the ball, you're in.
I just want to real quick give a shout out to Travis here. He was also going to be coming on the show, and just couldn't quite work it out with timing wise to get everybody together. But make sure you're following him if you're not already. The @TSEEL SEEL14 doing awesome work over there with the True North Fantasy guys. So love that you were able to come in here and at least get into the comments. You guys did great. That is an awesome show right there, guys. That's a lot of Philadelphia talk. That's right, Porkman. See, Porkman knows too. Trav is the man. And so love that. Lot of great things in Philadelphia. I think it's a time of a lot of hope right there. And, like you said, maybe the next couple of years, we rebuild a little bit. And I'd love for Jalen Hurts to just wind up being a star, man. Just watching his career, it's a guy that you have a hard time not rooting for, coming from where he came from and the character that he's shown, things like that. So certainly love that. So Rocky, I absolutely enjoyed having you on the show, man. Go ahead and tell everybody where to find you and how they can support you during this off season.
Yeah, thanks. I loved being here. It was great talking with you guys. I'm at Dynasty FF Addict on Twitter. DMs are always open if you have any questions or anything. And again, like I said earlier, you can find me at the Trade Addicts Pod, which we'll be recording later tonight with Jake Durbridge, and at Dynasty Junkies, which we've been pretty much back to doing every week as well. So you can follow those both at Trade Addicts Pod and at Dynasty Junkies as well. So again, thanks for having me on. Really great to pod with Mike and Dan and you as well.
Yeah, love that, and you're gonna have a lot of fun with Jake. He was on for the Green Bay Packers show, and that was a blast.
Yeah,
he's fun.
I did a Dynasty game night with Jake. It was very fun. Yeah,
no doubt. Mike, how about you, man? Let's just how can we support you over this offseason?
And you guys really make it seem like I don't do anything. I just host the Dynasty Rewind. You can follow me on Twitter at Rewind CEO, and Rocky's DMs are always open if you have any questions. I'm not exactly the most interactive person on there. You'll find me trolling people mostly, but I do respond to every DM I get, unless you're just saying something really stupid, in which case I'm going to ignore it. So come check us out. We broadcast every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. It's ready for you to go on Wednesday morning on your commute. And we got mock drafts uploading to our YouTube channel every Monday. We switch it up. It's not always the same type of mock draft. So I think the guys are working on like a Devi one or something like that. I usually don't do those. I let them do it. They have fun with it. They do a great job with it. Go check us out. There's a logo. Come hang out. It'd be great.
Dan, how about you, man? I know I love what you guys have going on there with Jay, but awesome show. How can we support your efforts this offseason?
All right, so you can find me at Eagle Dan FF on Twitter. I'm the Dynasty lead writer over at Going for Two. We're currently doing a bunch of rookie profiles over there, so check them out. I do a bi-weekly in the off-season podcast with G-Man J, podcast with Upside. We're actually doing the NFC East this week, funny enough. It was great talking to you guys. It was great not having to deal with Jay and his Giants fan garbage for a night. I'm also at 14 Personnel as a guest writer there and a Dynasty ranker over at Fantasy Pros. I actually released my quarterback rankings today, so you check those out.
What kind of nonsense? Like, is he saying Daniel Jones is better than Jalen Hurts or something?
It's just everything you can think of. It's just awful. Like he always trashes the Eagles. Always says this nonsense like they're going to be good like the Giants are going to be good or something. It gives me a headache, honestly. I don't know why I put up with it.
You're not married to him, right?
No, I know.
Like there's no alimony or anything.
The first opportunity I get. No, I'm just kidding. No, but he's a really good guy. No, we have fun. I kid. But his takes are stupid.
Well, I appreciate everybody coming on and look forward to catching up with you guys on your shows and all that. Make sure you're following us here at Dynasty Vipers, and I am at Calvin and Hobby. We have a lot of awesome things coming up. Like I said, kind of wrapping up these team spotlight series. But if you're not one of those 4 fan bases that don't seem to have any fantasy analysts attached to them, we probably already did your show. If you are a fantasy analyst and a fan of the Falcons or the Jaguars, hit me up on Twitter, please. That would be a lot of fun to have a chance to talk to you. So make sure you're following what we're doing. Matt Donnelly, FF. We have Bob Lung on the show tomorrow. I can't wait for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. Mr. Consistency. And we got a bunch more scheduled that I can't quite reveal or else Matt will be mad at me, but a lot of fun. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube, hit the notifications and all the cool things that the kids are doing now these days. That's going to wrap it up for these guys. I'm going to be right back in like 5 minutes with the Seahawks one, John Hellcamp, and that's going to be a lot of fun, and Seahawks Dan. So we'll talk about where Zach Ertz might end up if he gets traded with the Seahawks. So for these guys, for the Dynasty Vipers,